Kelvyn Colt, what a pleasure to have you here on Sprung.
Thank you for having me.
First time in Barcelona.
I have actually been here before, but that was only for a few hours. So this is my first time being here properly. I once did a voiceover for an advertisement. So I landed here. They drove me to the studio where we did the voiceover. We were there for like 2 hours, and I went back to the airport and I flew back. So,
I must admit, you do have an incredible voice.
thank you.
For any kind of radio and stuff. Have you considered also doing radio on the side?
I would love to. Is that an offer?
Well, we're always open. We're always open.
Okay, I'll come through. Yeah, I'd love to. I love talking, so yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, when I heard your song "Just Watch Me,"
Yeah.
for a moment I thought, "Is that DMX?"
Yeah, it's the rasp and like the rawness of the voice, and I guess the confidence of delivery. Because the song is about telling people who doubt me and who are my sort of, as much as I hate the term, but haters. Just watch me. I don't even care what you think about me. Because very often, when people when they're insecure, when they don't see themselves doing something or picturing themselves achieving something, and you tell them that you want to do that, they project like their insecurity onto you. And that's when, you get your friends or people telling you like, I don't think it's going to work, capable of that. And I'm like, just watch me. Just watch me do it. Don't worry. Just watch me.
Did you always have this deep voice, or or when how when we're kids,
Yeah.
there's always that moment where we go from having a little voice to all of a sudden like, oh damn,
Where did that come from? Damn, son, where'd you find it? It came all of a sudden, I feel like, when I was in my late teens. Because, listen, in my teenage years, maybe you'll find a picture somewhere. I was short, I had an afro, I was a little bit chubby and so on. And then all of a sudden, I think when I was like late 16, 17, I just grew very tall. My voice got deep. And then I was like, damn, I'm here now. Yeah.
And tell me more about when you were growing up. What were your first musical influences or first musical moments where you thought, I want to do this?
I always grew up around a lot of music just because I grew up in a Nigerian, Americanized household in Germany. As complicated as that might sound, but like there was always music playing, a lot of like, Motown stuff, soul, the old hip hop music, and I started off with poetry, and then I slowly transitioned into rapping because the poems I was writing were getting longer, and I started rapping the lyrics of Pac and Biggie onto their beats, sort of like a karaoke thing. And then I started applying my own verses and lyrics onto their beats. And then I was like, man, I think I need my own beats. When on YouTube started looking for like Drake type beat, Tupac type beat, Cudi type beat, and that's how slowly came into that. And then one day I had a fight with somebody. Not really a fight, because I just basically got slapped. I was young. And I was really angry because I couldn't fight back because there were like loads of... Well, I did fight back, but there were more. So I lost. And I put that anger into lyrics, into writing a song about that situation. And, rapping, like writing what I was going to do with him and his friends and da-da-da. And then also a little bit later, sort of really fell in love for the first time and also wrote a song about her. And that's where I was like, damn, I can channel my emotions into this. Yeah.
I imagine you noticed when you were growing up, a lot of the hip hop I imagine you were listening to, rappers weren't as confessional as they are nowadays. No, and some people even consider trap to be the fifth wave emo.
Yeah.
In a funny,
fair
joking
enough.
kind of way.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it always depends on what narrative you want to follow when addressing emotion within hip hop. Because if you take people that are considered like thugs and gangsters, people like Pac, he was extremely emotional. He was talking about his love for his mom, his love for women. There's songs where he's talking about that his uncle used to touch him when he was young, things that were unheard of for a gangster at that time. But the media and a lot of people just rather chose to run with the gangster persona that Pac also embodied, because there was sort of multiple personalities within him. And you had loads of other people like Guru off of Gangstar, you had CL Smooth P, loads of people who were more aware of themselves and speaking about the emotions. Tribe Called Quest, etc. But what was always in the limelight, and especially during the 2000s, was obviously gangster rap. Now with trap being sort of the new wave of emo, I think a lot of it comes due to the way it is being produced, because there's a lot of grunge elements there. There you have, you know, the guitars and people like Lil Peep who were, or you know, are, because he will live forever through his music, definitely championing that sound. Um, the thing about trap music very often, and talking about it being emotional, is that a lot of it is like whining and about drug use and so on, but it's not really reflective. You know what I mean? And I feel that is what a lot of people miss at times when listening to that sort of music. Yeah.
Also, you know, you grew up in, am I saying this right? Wiesbaden?
Yes.
Wiesbaden in southwest Germany. And before that, you grew up in an even smaller town,
Yeah,
but you left when you were 6. So, village.
Yeah, exactly. Fulda. That was the name of that village. Yeah, that was, I tend to jokingly say that was the center of the earth. Yeah, it was a tiny, tiny village. We then moved to Wiesbaden, which was a little bit bigger and is close to Frankfurt, which probably more people know due to the massive airport. But Wiesbaden has a really, really big American U.S. military base there. So there's a huge American influence on the whole city, and just in general the area, because after the Second World War, like, Americans were there ever since. So it's like deeply ingrained into sort of the youth culture there. Yeah.
Musically, how does that show? Record
Well,
shops?
yeah, I mean, you have places where they would have like open mics, and all the Americans would come, all the GIs that were rapping, and then, you know, you could hang out there and so on. Very often, however, the sort of German culture would not mix as much with the Americans, just because they had their own little area, and, you know, they had their own school, they paid with dollars, have their own police. We had family members and friends working for the army, so we would be there, would go to church, we'd go shopping there at the commissary, and used to go a lot to the States also when I was younger. But yeah, the cultural influence was definitely still always there, just because I was living between these two worlds, the sort of American world and the German world, which is also on the German side very much tied to the Middle Eastern culture, because that is, you know, the way black people are sort of the biggest minority in that sense in the United States. That's how, you know, Turkish, Kurdish, Middle Eastern culture is the biggest group in that sense in Germany. So it was like almost like 3 or 4 worlds I was growing up in between: the Nigerian, the American, the German, and the Middle Eastern.
How much in contact are you with Nigerian musical culture?
It's a mixed thing. I can't say as much as with American culture. And if I say American culture, it also means like trap music that is being created here and by European artists, because that is still an American sound, right? We've taken it and we've put our, as Europeans, I'm saying we, and have put our own elements to it, but it's still something that it comes from American black culture. But I'm getting more and more in touch with my Nigerian side of music, just because I also grew up listening a lot to Fela Kuti, and Afro beats and Afro swing at the moment is obviously massive. And, you know, I have my favorite artists, people like, you know, Burna Boy and Wizkid, and the list goes on. And I've also created a few songs recently that are, you know, inspired by that. I'm really much looking forward to release them in summer.
I mean, you know, looking at your biography, you're so young, but you've already had dabblings with studying law.
Yeah.
You've become you launched your own startup company with apps and digital technology, shall we say? So you're obviously someone who is very multifaceted, and you're ambitious, and that's good.
Have to be.
Do you see yourself transcending the trap genre and do you have your eyes set on a musical career that is more multi-stylistic?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm a, in quotation marks, trap artist, just because there's trap elements in my music and there's like 808s. Because if you look at, you know, the chords that we use and the way the songs are structured, it is not very typical trap music. Like if you at my last EP that we dropped, Mind of Colt Part 1, the first song Mama, I wouldn't say that's trap at all. And also for a lot of the newer stuff that is coming out, the only thing trap about that will be sort of the 808s, you know, that it slaps. But other than that, I feel that I create music rather than just a particular subgenre within hip hop. Yeah.
And going back to the, I read that you were the first person in your family to attend college,
Yeah.
and you were beginning a law degree.
Yep.
But you decided to continue pursuing your career in music because you, in your own words.
Yeah. Well, I had a partial scholarship to study law and business. Studying law was always the big dream of my dad. You know, him being a Nigerian coming to Europe, and yeah, but I came home after a few weeks and I was like, yo, listen, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm becoming a rapper. And then spent another year in Germany, traveling, going to Berlin, doing this and that, shows here and there. But it wasn't really progressing the way I wanted it to progress. And then I just said to myself, and also a lot of people that I was talking to, say, you got to go to a country where they understand what you're saying. And the Germans obviously understand what I'm saying, but in retrospect, it was the right step for me to leave Germany because I relocated then to London when I was 19. And I did study again. I studied business and I graduated as well, and then obviously started a company. But everything I did there was just sort of an alibi or, a means to an end, which was being able to make music and being able. The only reason I started my own company was because I wanted a flexible way that I could generate a passive income to finance my endeavors within music. And in the beginning, obviously my parents weren't that happy that I dropped out of law, especially being the first one having the opportunity to study. But at the end of the day, you have to live your own dream because you are the person that has to sit there and work the 9 to 5 or 12 hours a day, or depending on how passionate you are about your job. So it doesn't matter how much positive influence and advice your parents or the people around you want to give you. You have to become happy with what you do, and law wasn't making me happy. So I had to go.
You had to take that hard decision of, either not making your parents happy or doing your own thing.
Yeah.
And as an artist, I imagine you're more constantly faced with important decisions. And
all the time, every day.
How important is it learning to say no when you're becoming an artist?
Well, saying no is not only important for you as an artist, it is more so important for you as a person and your personal growth and development. And if you're a kind-hearted person and you want to satisfy the people around you, it is even more difficult to say no. And if you're an artist and you grow and there's more interest and offers start coming in left, right, and center, it becomes even more difficult to say no, because the tricky part when saying no is not in particular say no, it is knowing when to say no. Sometimes somebody offers you a lot of money for something and you're like, okay, I could use that money, we could do this for my family, we could do this for the community, we could do that for the business, or I want to do such and such for myself. But are you thinking about the long term? Will taking a small check now close a door for a bigger check, or maybe will that damage your credibility? It's about navigating, and in order to navigate the sea of life, you need to know what your destination is. Otherwise, you will get lost in the storm. And so I think the most important thing when it comes to saying no and being an artist is figuring out what your path is. Where do you want to go to? And is this opportunity, this yes or no option, going to help you to get to your goal, or is that going to lead you astray from where you actually want to go to?
And I imagine these business studies come very much in handy when you had to sign your first major label. No?
Yeah, definitely. Well, partially, because on the one hand, if you are sort of new to the industry, so unless you are, have gone viral and are already trending and charting, then you have a lot of leverage. So it's a different negotiation. But the point that I was at, we had leverage, not the amount of leverage we would have now if we were to enter the sort of negotiation again. But yeah, definitely, definitely. And not only when it comes to negotiating deals, just the overall business strategy, and even when it comes to dealing with your team, with your management, it is more of a back and forth thing where you know bounce ideas back and forth, and you have a conversation rather than you just being an artist sitting there and you let people decide everything constantly for you. And you know, somebody might have good intentions, but maybe they don't really understand who you are or where you are. And having an understanding of business helps you understand these people as well. You know, it's these days I think you have to be more than just an artist. You have to be a business as a person, and you have to understand that business.
It's funny because now that artists have more control and they can do everything themselves with internet, learning to make your own flyers even when you're starting out and stuff. It does mean that you're talking of people who work 9 to 5. An artist's work is never done.
No, never.
If you're doing it yourself.
Never. And that's so funny because people have the perception of, you know, rappers just hanging out and drinking lean and smoking weed and being on Xanax 24/7, and then, you know, they come late to their shows and they do this and that. And of course there are artists like that, but these artists don't tend to have the longest careers or even lives, you know. And the more you treat it like a professional career, the longer that career is gonna last. And yeah, man, it's wild, but you have to put in work. But that's why it touches back on one of the things that we spoke about first, that you need to find fulfillment in what you do, because if you don't enjoy doing it, you're never able to commit these insane hours, this, you know, performing at 3 o'clock at night and then waking up at 8 a.m. for the photo shoot. You know, you can't commit to that because you don't love what you do. And if you want to be successful, it doesn't matter what career it is, you just have to be obsessed with what you do. Otherwise, it will destroy you.
Tell me about London. You were mentioning how, you know, people would tell you go to where people will understand your lyrics and stuff. And London is one of the musical capitals of the world, shall we say, you know, with the industry, the managers, the producers, the legends, the studios. How did London influence you? Like, did you notice there was a giant leap in you as an artist from leaving Germany behind?
Yes, but it was a two-sided thing. On the positive side, first and foremost, my network expanded. My horizon as an artist expanded on, you know, what you have to do to stick out of the mass. Because in Germany, there's a handful of English-speaking rappers. In London, everybody raps. Every kid on the corner raps. So it's like, what makes you special? And you know, and it's very, very competitive there because everything is expensive, and then you have American stars coming in all the time, in and out. Everybody wants to connect, this, that, that. It's a lot faster. So it's like a bit like being out in the jungle, and you have to, you know, you have to toughen up. However, on the downside, that has a psychological effect on you as well. You're constantly under stress. You're constantly under pressure. I knew nobody. I had no money. I was working retail. I was starting a business. I was studying, and I was doing music at the same time. And you know, if you are not a strong person, this shit can break you or make you, you know, do drugs or get lost in the nightlife. There's so much temptation. So I grew not only as an artist, but more so even as a person. And yeah, so it's a love and hate relationship whilst you go through it. But once you have maneuvered your path through it and, you know, found and built your network and your community, your family, looking back at it, I'm like, damn, it was the right decision, definitely.
Just going back I'm gonna wrap up because you're giving me so much incredible material. We were talking about how now it's more common to hear rap lyrics which are more emotional, more you know, it's much more commonplace. When was the last time you cried about something related to art?
Ooh, what do you mean by that? Like watching a movie, reading a story, listening to a song?
Yeah, rather than cry because of physical pain or something. Yeah. All right, let's be more general. When was the last time you cried?
Last time I cried? That's a good question. Probably not too long ago, and it was I would want to say, because if you're asking me the last time I cried, if I recall it consciously, it would be a good friend of mine passing and me mourning that death. But other than that, probably read. Oh no, you know what? I was reading a story about. I think it was in Libya, and it was the EU funding militias that stop migrants from crossing the sea. And after obviously the removal of Gaddafi and the breaking of the infrastructure in Libya and the power structure, a lot of these militias have turned literally towards slavery, human trafficking, prostitution, and I was reading the stories and seeing the pictures of these people, and a lot of them happened to come from Nigeria, where obviously my father is from. It really, really, really touched me, and I started tearing up reading about this, because, I'm always thinking like, yo, if I would have been born there and not here in Europe, that would, with the ambition that I have and the drive, and me going to London, going there, doing this, sleeping on couches, sleeping on the street, hustling, I would be that type of person who would hop onto this raft to come over to Europe to hustle here. And if I'm not lucky, I would end up in one of these camps, and there's nothing I can do. And these people get money, they get guns, they get everything they need from our governments over here, because we're trying to deal with an immigration crisis, in quotation marks. And yeah, that story made me definitely tear up. Like, we currently have more slaves than ever in history before. And when we think about slavery, we talk about the slave trade from, Africa to America, the Spanish colonies, the French colonies. But like currently we have more slaves than ever before. And why? Because of greed, because of corruption, because of us removing governments due to us wanting to get the hand of oil, political power, etc. And it is so unnecessary, and it's a mass suffering. And yeah, that story made me tear up.
Of all the emotions that you have, what fuels your lyrics the most?
Pain, sadness, hope, and the motivation to motivate other people and inspire other people to never accept the status quo, to be rebellious, to challenge what is being presented to you, to believe in yourself, and most importantly, to love yourself, because nobody can love you unless you love yourself.
Thank you, Kelvyn Colt.
Love.
Please come back more often.
Anytime, brother. Love. Thank you, man.